Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tinkerverse. So today we've got a new toy to play with, and yeah, we'll cut through some of this plastic and we're going to show you what arrived at our doorstep yesterday. So let's get started. Let's pull out the instruction manual here. They've got some keepers on here to keep everything stationary during shipping. Little red arrows point to the pieces that need to be removed. Okay, so you take off a couple of screws. And this is 4. In the kit are a couple of pieces here. We've got an elbow that's going to screw in to the side of the module. So that's a 12 millimeter. It has an O-ring on there, and you don't want to wrench this really tight. You just want to snug it up. So that goes there. This is going to feed down through there and plug into, and it's just going to be a press fit. There you go, just like that. So that's press fit in there, and then that plugs in like that. Let me pull these little buttons that came with the honeycomb kit. It drops right out. And there you go. So I'd say that's a successful test. Got a really nice burn here. Let me shut the fan off. Okay, so let's talk first impressions. My first impressions so far have been wonderful with this machine. It has been one of the fastest from box to actual job of any machine that I've seen so far. You open up the box, you take out the frame, which is fully assembled, you add a couple components to the laser module to get it prepped, drop it on, connect up your power and your air assist if you want it, and you're pretty much ready to go. So, you know, there's a couple of videos out there that show, you know, 1 minute, minute and a half setups. I would say, you know, depending on which revision you get, because the ones I've seen don't have you installing some of the plumbing for the air assist. You know, realistically, 3 to 5 minutes, honestly, and you're up and running. And that's having, you know, taken a look at the manual, removing the stops, the pieces that keep the gantry in place for shipping and all that stuff. So, you know, allow yourself maybe 5 minutes and you're ready to start burning. As far as setup goes, you know, setup was fast and easy in LightBurn. I used their LB dev file that they included with the machine, and it was pretty much ready to go out of the box. There are a few tweaks that I do recommend making before you start your first jobs, but we'll get into those a little bit later. But for now, you know, I was thoroughly impressed. So on the P2, ACMER uses these linear rails. They're calling them industrial rails. These linear guide rails are basically a solid rail with a bearing block that rides along it, with the bearing block attached to, in this case, the gantry or the y-axis. So, you know, they're relatively low maintenance. They're compared to some of the other designs that are out there with the nylon wheels and eccentric nuts and such. You know, the belt system's pretty straightforward. It comes, you know, in my case, it was really well tensioned, but it's easy to access the tensioning screws if you need to do any maintenance to the belts. all around, this is one of the cleanest machines. Wire routing, there's no drag change, but in this case, there's no need for them. The wire routing is immaculate. It's secured to the C channels that they have designed here on both sides. There's enough slack to hit all four corners of the machine without putting strain on anything. And it's one of the first machines I've seen where, you know, your air tubing doesn't just kind of flop behind and drag. So it's very well designed, very well thought out machine, and the attention to detail that they've put seems to be a little bit above some of what I've tested so far. So that being said, under the front panel here is where your connection is, your power connection for your air pump, so that you can control your air pump through G-code. You've also got a button to enable and disable the fire alarm. There is a fire alarm that looks for flash off, so there may be times where you have to disable that if you're in a really bright environment or get reflections off of specific materials and stuff like that. Sometimes it's beneficial to disable that, but it is there. There's also tilt, and I did test, if you go beyond a 15-degree tilt, if the machine's falling or gets bumped or whatever, it will sound the alarm and shut the machine down instantly. I did test the e-stop, so I was in the middle of doing this first job here, and between the engraving and the final cut, I tested it with that, and it was instantaneously off, so that's nice. So as far as manuals and instructions to get you up and running, the manual, while sparse on wording, it's adequate. Considering there's not as much assembly as most of the other machines, really their assembly instructions consist of, put the laser down, plug it in and secure it with some zip ties, and plug in your air supply. That's about it, and then they go on to software. They do cover a little bit of laser gerbil in here, and then a little bit of LightBurn, so keep that handy. And again, we'll talk about LightBurn setup in a minute. They do provide, there's just a quick, before you start, that talks about removing the 4 security screws. And this is also on the flash drive they provide, but there's a very base level parameters sheet that's designed around your machine. So it talks about surface engraving and then cutting parameters for some of the more common materials. So, it gives you some starting points. And then they give you a test cut, a material test cut that was done on a 2mm piece of probably basswood. I don't think that's a ply, or if it is, it's a it's a 2mm ply or balsa or something. And they give you, a cut grid, they give you a basic engravings, they give you a grayscale. So, that's another thing that if you're working here and here, you can pretty much apply those to most of your plywoods. Your cut settings, obviously, you're going to have to adjust accordingly because not too many people deal with 2mm plywood, but usually it's going to be 3 and 6mm or larger. But that's there and gives you some more starting parameters. All right, so other than that, let's get cutting on some more projects. So let's talk about the P2. Some of the pros and some of the cons. So pros, this machine is, as I mentioned earlier, it is one of the fastest from box to actual functional job of any of the machines that I've had in my hands that I can remember. So it's very fast to set up. It's very beginner friendly in terms of getting something on the bench up and running with minimal fuss. So that's good. It's a very clean machine. All the cable routing goes out one side, so that's a nice touch. There's nothing coming off, protruding off of the top or out of the front. So that's all nice and clean. Your wire management is fantastic. You know, obviously the linear rails are going to be a long-term, low maintenance option. And the frame itself is remarkably robust. It's very sturdy. There's no twist, no racking. It's just a very all-around good, solid frame. So, you know, as far as cut quality, it's fantastic. Everything I've thrown at it, from wood, cork, acrylic, engraving on stainless steel, engraving on anodized aluminum. You know, I kind of put it through its paces with just about all the materials that they give you in the material test kit, and it handled them all like a champ. Now, some of their settings were a little bit different, but that's okay. Again, these are meant to be baselines. You know, your mileage may vary based on, you know, how you're set up and what materials and all that stuff. So, you know, it is rotary ready. You would need risers to raise it up high enough to leverage a rotary, but it does come with the rotary cable. Other than that, you know, just the machine fit and finish is just really nice. It does have some safety features built in that are nice to have, especially with an open gantry style like this on a diode laser. So anyway, so those are some of the good. There are a few cons. They're not anything terrible. They're nothing that would prevent me from buying the machine again. And, you know, I just want to cover them. So in all fairness, that I'm covering the bad with the good. So first of all, the cooling fan on the laser module is exceptionally loud, and it doesn't shut off when there's no cut job going. So, you know, as I turn this on now, it sounds like a jet engine, and I have to just about scream over it. So while the fan itself is moving a lot of air, and that's a good thing, you know, it would be great to see that shut off, even if it's a delayed shut off sometime when the job is done, and then fire up again when you start the job. So that's one of my issues. The next one is the focus kickstand. While the kickstand itself is fairly well executed, magnets on both ends to keep it in place, and, you know, folds up nice and neatly out of the way. If you've got slightly larger fingers, you may find it a little difficult to flip the stand back up once you have focus, especially if there's any kind of pressure on there. So some little nub or something on that to allow you to just grab that and flick it would be great, so you don't have to kind of dig at it. Removable guard would be nice. So I was not able to engrave something like this. There's a profile here with a lip on the edge. Now, I could reset a start from and a finish position within the confines of this, but if I were to try and put this down, the focal height of the laser, there's such a minuscule gap between the bottom of the guard and your material when you're properly in focus that it would not clear these edges, and you'd end up moving this piece around. So being able to remove the guard would help that tremendously, because then it would clear, you know, or like I said, otherwise I'd have to do it in software where I would set, you know, start from current position instead of absolute position, and set my return to position for the job, and then I would have to bring the laser within the confines of this, focus it, and then when the job's done, raise the laser out to get it out of the way. So, you know, just be aware that there are some limitations to the materials and the designs of what you can put in there if you have any sort of profiling that you have to clear. The last concern that I have is not much of a concern, other than it's more of an just a curiosity, and that is their choice of using USB-B. So if you look at USB-B, It's the old square style that you're going to see on older printers. You're going to see it on older like Arduino and control, some of those controller boards and stuff like that. So, I'm kind of curious if they're really using an old technology board in here, or what the active choice was to go USB-B when the rest of the world is migrating to USB-C as a standard, including quite a bit of the automation world with your lasers and your CNCs and stuff. USB-C is becoming kind of the go-to standard. So, not many people have a USB-B cable laying around, so if you needed to extend that or you needed to replace that, it's a little bit harder to find something. Or if you've got like a newer laptop, MacBook, something like that, that only has USB-C, then you're going to have to deal with converters back and forth. So while it doesn't impact the function of the machine from an accessory standpoint, it's more of a curiosity than anything. Now, the honeycomb kit that I have here does not come with the machine by default. This is an add-on piece, but it is an essential add-on piece. Unless you have a honeycomb and a bed plate in your arsenal already, this is a must-buy when you purchase the laser. So factor that cost into the price of the laser when you buy it. Without this, you're not going to want to do any cutting because you're not going to have anything to protect your work surface. And having the honeycomb raises it up and allows air circulation, so you don't get, the charring on the back as bad, and just allows your laser to be overall more efficient on cutting. Engraving doesn't matter so much unless you're going to be engraving past the boundaries of your workpiece. So, definitely consider that. The ACMER honeycomb's actually nice. It comes with a bunch of those body clips that can be used for work holding or jig positioning or whatever. So I found those, rather a treat to work with. The 25-liter air pump that comes with it has been fine. I am not cutting 3/4 inch material, while, technically they're saying that you could. So 3/4 would be what, 6, 12, 18 millimeter material. They're saying you can cut 18 millimeter wood. I wouldn't want to without a little bit stronger air supply. It can be done, I'm sure, but I would expect a lot of charring. So, but for, up through the 1/4 inch material, which I've been using through most of my testing, and acrylics and stuff like that, the included air pump has been, it works. It's there. It's unobtrusive, out of the way. It's got rubber feet on the bottom for vibration damping. Overall, it's a nice inclusion. So, I think that about covers it. The ACMER P2 is definitely a solid contender at the mid-price point. Without the enclosure and without the newer machines that are going towards more of a class rating for being fully enclosed and having all the integrated bits. Gantry style lasers are coming down in price and becoming a little bit more competitive because people are starting to go to the bigger machines or the more enclosed designs. And the P3 has that, obviously. But at the price point, this is more than a lot of your entry-level machines, but it also performs better than your entry-level machines. It has a level of performance that is just, I would have no problems putting this into full-time production use, in my shop. And I've got CO2 lasers at this point, I've got fiber lasers, and I've got many diodes, and this thing would absolutely be one of my go-to workhorses, without question. So I think that just about covers it. The included supplies, the little toolkit's nice, the additional lenses, the inclusion of a decent set of safety goggles, even though I do tend to use my own. The material test kit's got a decent variety, so you can play around with stuff and build your own settings libraries up in LightBurn. It is laser GRBL compatible. If you want the free option, just know that laser GRBL is not nearly as user-friendly as LightBurn. I strongly suggest, if you're going to be doing this with any kind of regularity, LightBurn is the go-to software. So something to consider. The cost the price point on that's about 69 bucks right now, I want to say, for the G-code controller version, or the GRBL controller version. So, you know, factor that into your decision as well. Otherwise, I think that about wraps up everything that I wanted to cover for this machine. Until next time, you know, thanks for dropping in. Make sure you give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. It greatly helps me out, and it helps me bring you more, not only reviews, but tutorials and just general lasing, as it were, within the Tinkerverse. So, thanks everybody, and until next time, we'll see you later.